The definition and equation of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is a process by which plants make their own energy and food. The equation of photosynthesis is CO2 plus H2O plus sunlight equals C6H12O6 plus O2. Reactants and products of photosynthesis. The reactants are CO2, H2O, and sunlight, and the products are C6H12O6 and O2. Where does photosynthesis take place? Photosynthesis occurs in the cell organelle called chloroplast. Inside the chloroplast there contains thylakoids, which are pigmented membranes where the light reactions take place. They are stacked to form granum. Light-dependent reactions. When electrons inside the thylakoids absorb sunlight, they gain a lot of energy. These charged electrons are joined together with the carrying molecules NADP plus and water to make NADPH. These reactions produce oxygen gas and convert ADP and NADP plus into the energy carriers ATP and NADPH. The Calvin cycle uses ATP and NADPH from the light-dependent reactions to fix CO2 producing high-energy sugars. CO2 enters the chloroplast through the stroma. ATP and NADPH continue to put out energy into the carbon dioxide until it is turned into C6H12O6. Cellular respiration is a process in which animals release energy, being breaking down sugars and other nutrients in food while the presence of oxygen. The equation of cellular respiration is 6O2 plus C6H12O6 equals 6CO2 plus 6H2O plus energy. Reactants and products of cellular respiration. The reactants are oxygen and glucose, and the products are carbon dioxide, water, and energy.
Where does it take place? Cellular respiration takes place in the mitochondria, powerhouse of the cell. The mitochondria is also where the Krebs cycle takes place. The process of glycolysis takes place in the cytoplasm. Glycolysis. In the beginning of glycolysis, two ATP molecules start the reaction. NADH molecules hold the electrons in place until they can transfer to other molecules. This process is so fast that it can produce thousands of ATP molecules in a few milliseconds. This also produces pyruvic acid, needed in the Krebs cycle. Glycolysis does not require oxygen. The Krebs cycle. During the Krebs cycle, the pyruvic acid, created through glycolysis, is broken down into carbon dioxide in a series of reactions. Electrons are removed, turning NAD plus into NADH. The electrons are harvested to make ATP during glycolysis. Then, citric acid and ATP are created through acetyl CoA. The electron transport chain. High-energy electrons from NADH and FADH are passed through the electron transport chain from one carrier protein to the next. On the other side, the H plus ions are now negatively charged. As the enzyme rotates, it grabs low-energy ADP, attaching a phosphate and forming high-energy ATP. The totals of glycolysis in the Krebs cycle. Glycolysis makes 2 ATP molecules. The entire breakdown of glucose through cellular respiration produced 36 to 38 ATP molecules. ATP production, glycolysis, and the Krebs cycle produce 2 ATP on their own, but the entire process makes 30 to 32 ATP molecules. Fermentation. Fermentation releases energy from food molecules by producing ATP without the presence of oxygen. There are 2 types of fermentation, alcoholic fermentation and lactic acid fermentation. Alcoholic fermentation. This form of fermentation is used by yeasts to create ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide as wastes. In lactic acid fermentation, in many cells, pyruvic acid that has accumulated from glycolysis can be converted into lactic acid. The difference between photosynthesis and cellular respiration. While photosynthesis is performed by plant cells, cellular respiration is performed by animal cells. Photosynthesis takes place in chloroplast, Well, cellular respiration takes place in a mitochondria. The relationship between photosynthesis and cellular respiration. The equations for photosynthesis and cellular respiration are polar opposites. This means that two processes are dependent on each other. If one fails, the other will be sure to fail. In conclusion, we need both photosynthesis and cellular respiration in order for us to survive. The end.